It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
Unafeared here and Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, another independence declaring kind of individual, Don Boudreaux. Now, he was one of the original summiteers, one of our first speakers at our 2001 Freedom Summit, which was 3 weeks after 9/11. Man, if we didn't know what was coming. And if you've been an attendee at the Freedom Summit over the past 10 years, you got a dose, and we said what was going to be happening with economics, what was going to be happening with civil liberties, what was going to be happening in the growth of government, what was going to be happening with war, what was going to be happening. And I don't know, I don't think that we missed in any of the cylinders. So, but Don Boudreaux, now he's was chairman of the Department of Economics at George Mason University from 2001 to 2009. He's still at the George Mason University, the economics department there. And he's served as president of Libertarian think tank, the Foundation for Economic Education. And I'm sure that you know Lawrence Reed. We had him on yesterday or the day before. He's going to be a speaker there also. So you're going to be talking about the economics. And we need somebody to be talking about the economics because economics is going to be key coming up. So, Don, please go ahead and add anything that you need to your bio so people know your background to be able to talk about the things that the people at the summit need to know. It's so great to have you back and on the show. Thanks for coming in. Go ahead and tell us what you're going to be talking about at the summit.
Well, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for having me. It's a real pleasure. My main topic is going to be globalization, or just the economics of trade. There's so much misunderstanding about it now. People are demonizing China, China's export policies and monetary policies. And I have a very different perspective on those things than does the mainstream media, and certainly than do people on Capitol Hill and elsewhere on Pennsylvania Avenue. So I'm going to talk about that. I have a whole book entitled Globalization that came out a couple years ago that's aimed not at my fellow economists, it's aimed at a general audience designed to make the issues of trade and globalization clear and understandable, and I hope actually also enjoyable. So I'm going to talk about that. I love talking about trade, and not only how trade enriches nations, enriches families, it's consistent. It's the only policy consistent with freedom, but also how it's the only ethical system. It's the only system consistent with our ability to thrive as individuals. And so I like talking about both the economics and the non-economic aspects of trade, and that's what I'll focus on during my time in Phoenix.
What do you mean the non-economic aspects? I mean, does economic... This is the advocacy that I've seen a common theme from you and from people that we have at the Freedom Summit, is that they understand economics to be kind of key to everything that has to do with our freedoms.
Oh, look, I'm a professional economist, and it's the discipline that's nearest and dearest to my heart. I love it. It's because I'm an economist. It's because I learned economics that I became interested in learning about the freedom philosophy and became interested in doing playing what little role I can in this world to help promote liberty. By non-economic, I just mean I think free trade is important and vital, even if it doesn't lead to improvements in living standards. Now, I think it does lead to improvements in living standards, but I think that I feel in my heart that it's simply wrong for you or anyone else to tell me, even if that person happens to work on Capitol Hill under a white domed building, to tell me that they don't want me purchasing goods and services that I voluntarily would otherwise choose to purchase. So that's a non-economic aspect of it. It's sort of a philosophical, just liberty as a value in itself aspect. And also other aspects to it. A lot of people worry about free trade and globalization not because it makes people poorer, but in fact because it makes people richer. It's kind of an odd argument. They worry about free trade because they think it makes us too materialistic, because it makes our lives so much easier. We don't have to struggle as hard. It destroys our culture. It undermines our culture. And I address a number of these issues in the talks that I give and that I will give at the Freedom Summit on trade.
Well, I'm hoping that you make it there without getting groped too much. What's your view on a lot of the news that's going on? Ron Paul is here right now. We have, some live broadcasts we've already done from him at ASU. He's really stepped up on this TSA thing. It's going to be a big deal here in Arizona on the day before Thanksgiving. And this kind of is a manifestation of a lot of other things. And it really comes down to one of the statements that he made is that, look, we're of the opinion now that we've accepted the idea that they're going to protect us, they're going to corral us, they're going to feed us, and sooner or later they're going to eat us. And I know he was talking about economics. He's like, look, man, the only thing they want from us is whatever we can produce for them. So at what point is this going to stop? I mean, is there a limit? Are they just going to keep printing the money? Is it going to, because this QE2 thing, I mean, what do you see in the near future? I mean, we're talking about between now and the next summit. I mean, the Freedom Summit is an annual update of our current status of freedom. And what they're doing with the dollar is going to have an impact like not later. And maybe even by Christmas, we're going to see, we already are starting to see a lot of things. How do you think that's going to manifest itself in our lives?
Well, inflation is the obvious answer to that question. I know you know that, and I think people with any sense do know that, and we do see some indices now that are starting to creep up. You simply cannot pump that much money into an economy on top of all the money that's been pumped in the past 2 years and not expect to see inflation. I am frankly surprised that inflation hasn't manifested itself already, but I don't take the absence of rampant inflation today as any comfort that we won't have galloping inflation tomorrow. Now, whether it starts, literally tomorrow or next month or maybe first of the year, I agree with you. I don't think it's that far away. Let me be clear, I don't think we're going to have, a Brazilian-style or certainly not a German-style hyperinflation, but I do think we're going to return to something like the inflation rates that we saw in this country 30 years ago. Pushing, in the double digits, and so nominal interest rates, mortgage rates, they're going to start to skyrocket. I just don't see how that's not going to happen. It's like the only scenario I can see for that not happening is this is an utter, complete collapse of the economy, which I don't think is going to happen. But given what these clowns in Washington are doing, and what a lot of clowns in state governments are doing, it's as if they want to cause the economy to collapse, because most of their policies are just they're designed to cut the heart out of entrepreneurial capitalism. And
well, why would you think so? I mean, we had silver was down in the 15s just earlier this year. So and now it's almost double that. I don't know. I see some effects of inflation. I mean, dang, man, I don't know what else we're looking for.
I'll say what I had in mind. And maybe I'm not being guilty here of just being too much of a professional economist. Economists tend to focus on, at least as a first run matter, focus on the consumer price index.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that when we come back. You guys stay right there. We got Don Bordeaux from George Mason University. The boy knows what's going on. He told us before He's going to tell us again right here on Declare Your Independence with me, Ernest Hancock, my special guest, Don Brudeau. We'll be right back.